Okay. So I've been planning on going live for probably the last 3 days or so. And with the kind of the hustle and bustle of the Team PPA launch, I just haven't had the time. But here I am now. I'm here now. I want to jump on live before I run out and get a workout in, not only to open up the floor for questions, but we're also going to be talking a little bit about the brand new Team PPA remote training application that we dropped on Wednesday. So we've had a handful of athletes sign up already, and they're already on board and they're going on their training. We're within the app, we're communicating all the time. So it's really, really cool to be able to see people on board, use the app, give us feedback, and just be progressed already, which is awesome. So if you're just tuning on and you're wondering what's going on, I'm Coach Tyler here, the owner and head coach of Project Pure Athlete, and we're opening the floor for some Q&A. You can ask training questions, nutrition, maybe not nutrition questions. I usually take those when my wife is around because she's the PPA certified nutritionist. Training, mindset, recovery, questions about myself if you'd like. If you're kind of an OG and remember me from the dunk days, if you have questions about that, we're here for you, and I wanted to open the floor up. So first and foremost, we're hoping you're having a good day. Let's talk a little bit about the what's up, Bill? How you doing? Let's talk a little bit about the Team PPA remote training application that dropped on Monday. So we had been talking about this for a lot of years, is having our training methodology housed on one localized platform that allowed athletes to onboard, be slotted into the appropriate stream of training, and then have access to a really extensive video library, but also coaching at the same time, all on the same platform. So we partnered up with our friends at Train Heroic, who had built out an amazing application platform that allowed businesses, companies to build out their own service within that already pre-made application. So we love the user-friendly element of our application, and our Team PPA application right now has 3 streams that you can be slotted into. So we have a PPA power stream, we have a PPA elastic stream, and we have a PPA knee foundation stream currently. We're going to be uploading more streams, constantly as we move forward, but we've opened up right now for what's called our registration window. So we're only taking registrations until June 30th. It's $39.97 per month, no contract, so you can cancel at any time. But again, our goal is that when you sign on board, you realize how powerful it has to have something like this in your pocket, alongside you when you go to the gym or whether you work out at home. We're going to be introducing a PPA body weight stream for the next wave, as well as some other additional streams that are really cool. So once you're on there and you've completed a program, you can transfer, move programs. It tracks your workouts. It tracks your recovery. It tracks all of your progress. You can submit videos of jumping and exercises for review by us so that as you're progressing forward, things are in place. Because there are so many times when I get athletes in that are like, I've been doing X for this long of time, and I'm not sure why it's not helping me. It turns out that some of the movements they were performing were being performed incorrectly, which were causing some compensations, and as a result, not eliciting the proper stimulus from the body. So there's a lot to be said about having that coach in your corner, and we'd love to be your coaches. People say, will I reach my goals? And we say, we want to help you surpass them. It's not our goal to help you reach them. We want to show you that you can think bigger than that. We've done it firsthand as athletes, and we've been doing this as coaches for many years. So the link to that, let's see if I can just post. I'm not sure if you can post stuff in the comments, but let's just give it a try. I'm just going to open this up and see if I can't post this in the comments section. Hopefully that didn't shut us down. Copy. We're back. Let's see if we can't do this. All right, so I've posted it in the comments. You can copy and paste that from there. You can also find that direct link through our Instagram, and I'll also post the link in this description when we're done recording. A couple questions coming in. Is it a good option to sprint intensively to increase explosiveness and athleticism? Yeah, so sprinting can play a part in progressing your power output as well as your reactive strength capacity. So we have to understand that there are many different elements of strength and power and sprinting, because it's an exceptionally fast turnover, works on reactive strength and elastic capability. Some athletes will thrive more from sprinting than others. That being said, having it as part of your program is definitely a good way to go. go. And we do have that built into our programs on the Team PPA application. So yes, it's just a matter of figuring out what that sprinting looks like to you, because you can sprint so many different ways. I mean, you're going to sprint the same way, but in terms of duration of sprint, the intervals that you set up, the amount of sets, reps, and rest, that's where it really pays off to have a coach in your corner. How can boxing help jump endurance? So boxing, like any other kind of highly aerobic output sport, there's obviously a lot of elements of strength, endurance built into boxing, and then power as well from throwing different punches. Now, boxing is largely rotational, right? There's a lot of rotation side to side with throwing the hip and throwing punches, moving the head. So, jumping has a lot of correlation over to rotational power and control. So I see that being something that's very complementary. I did track and field for many years, and I still, as a master's athlete, throw discus. And discus is very rotational, very similar to, say, if you throw a big right hook or left. For me, it's right hook. But the rotational power created by something like a discus or throwing punches going to be very beneficial for jumping. And then also just the general conditioning aspect, right? That kind of general physical preparation, making you a better athlete. And transferring energy in a different direction. Yes. We got here. Can you maybe do a jump technique video for Jordan Sutherland? We get a lot of requests for jump technique videos, and I'd love to sit there and do jump technique videos all day. I'll add it to the list. Jordan Sutherland's a great 1 foot jumper. Definitely displays a lot of really good positions. He's somebody that most definitely is a byproduct of a lot of jumping and not as much weight room work as other jumpers. That being said, he's a phenomenal athlete, and we'd love to take a look at his jumps. How important is the volume of jumps done in a single session? How many jumps would you consider a good number? So that's by Gains for Life. So that's going to largely depend on a number of factors. Number one is going to be kind of your training age, the goals that you have, where you're at in your season. If you're a team sport athlete, it doesn't serve you very well to go into a training session and do a ton of jumps when part of your sport is highly jump oriented, right? Your training would look a little bit more like maintenance work to support the amount of jumps you're doing in your actual sport. If you're a athlete just training specifically to jump higher and that's all you're doing, the amount of jump reps can vary. But when I was kind of a highly competitive jumper, an elite level jumper, non-including my warm-up progression of jumping, the actual max jump efforts would range anywhere between 20 to 40 jumps, depending on the given day and what event was upcoming at that time. Is jump rope the same as pogo jump because it's the same movement? No, not entirely the same movement. Jump rope is a lot more passive on the bottom end with the feet. It's a little bit more rhythmic versus the pogo jump is the intention behind the pogo should be aggressive application of the feet and then a very violent dorsiflexion in the air where you pull the toe up. So you're really actively pawing at the ground with a pogo versus a jump rope is a very dynamic rhythmic movement that allows you to accumulate a lot of reps and volume over time. So not exactly the same, but I see what you're saying. Theoretically, you're up and down in the same spot. It's a progressed as a pogo hop is a progressed version of something like a jump rope. And then I like jump rope as well for building in kind of that intuitive element of jumping, which is just working on coordination, rhythm, bounciness, and just synchronizing the movements. Arm length as it relates to max jump height, highly important, or do many jumpers just happen to have longer arms in relation to their height? It's going to vary person to person. I've known a multitude of very high jumpers and have a wide variety of arm length, right? So someone like, I'm trying to think of long arms that you might know of. Older dunker T-Dub, one of the highest jumpers I've ever met, 5'9", really long arms, big hands, right? Jumps very high. It can absolutely aid because, again, you create a longer moment arm from the shoulder. There should, theoretically be more velocity behind the arm swing. We're really looking more for an arm strike. Okay, and this is something, stay with me, right? So the arms are swinging, but the intention of the arm is to speed up the velocity of hip extension, but it's also to create additional impulse on the ground when we apply the plant and our block foot, specifically that block foot, that last contact. So striking the arms down with the block is going to create some additional feedback from the ground, which is why it's not so important like how high and far you get your arm swing, but more importantly, how aggressive you strike within the mobility that you're using. So arm length can be a beneficial factor, but we look more for teaching that strike and that synchronization of movements. Someone like Jordan Kilgannon, who many of you know, very short arms, jumps very high. I had very short arms, jumped very high. Chase, the other part of PPA, very short arms, jumped very high. Just depends on the athlete. Angel, my growth bone it's sealing and it hurts. Do I have to rest? So there's a lot of growth plates in the body, but likely at your age, if you're young, I imagine you're somewhere in the 12 to 15 years old, just guessing. Chondromalacia of the knee, perhaps, kind of that tibial growth plate. I'm 17. Okay, so it's a bit later. You could still be experiencing aspects of, is it in your knee? If it's in your knee, then it could potentially have converted from a chondromalacia into a patellar tendonitis. In which case, I'd recommend you watch the video I did on patellar tendonitis on our channel. It's one of those things where if it's truly like a chondromalacia of the knee, utilizing it is just going to be painful. It's not necessarily going to do a lot of damage. If it's a tendinopathy and you're jumping on it, it could very well do additional damage and will do additional damage to the tendon over time. Dunk Camp Dunk Horse highlights. You'd have to go and check with Andy of the Dunk Camp. He took all of that. I wasn't able to stick around for the entire thing because it went way longer than expected, and we had a lot of work to accomplish that day. Do you like doing jump endurance training, such as consecutive max jumps within a short period of time, or do you prefer one max jump with short period, or for one max, mixing it all together? All of it. It's important to understand that everything is kind of that a small piece to the large puzzle, which means that jump endurance is going to be part of it. Sometimes I'll do fatigued technique work as well, where I'll take an athlete through something quite anaerobic to spike the heart rate, and then we'll take them through something like a penultimate push punch through a handful of repetitions of that, so they can condition their body to experience and express good movement in a fatigue state. All right, I'm just trying to scroll down. If you work with basketball players, how much of your jumping skills is applied to jumping with a ball and using basketball angles, i.e. jumping from a spin, move, or jumping from a hop, step, etc.? So a lot of the work within team PPA training is built for the team sport athlete. So we account for things like volume, frequency of workouts. Now, something is something as specific as like on court jumping with a ball is very basketball skills oriented. That's something that you take the strength, stability, power, technique from training into and onto the court to practice these different variations of attacking the rim. That being said, the stimulus to your body will support all that, meaning that we train you in all planes of action and through rotation. So the training benefits the sport specificity at a high degree. It's very important to understand as well that sport specific is not always ideal, meaning just recreating elements of the game with like weight is not necessarily the route you need to be taking. So we have to understand that we strengthen the muscles through multiple planes of controlled action so that we can implement that that result into the sport specific picture, meaning that we're taking the gym gains and then we're working the skill of our sport. When you start crossing too much over, it starts to dilute some of the training in our experience. So we'd like to make sure that people and their protocol is a lot more about building the general traits and then some of the smaller, more stabilizer traits to be able to transfer over into your sport. I hope that makes sense. It's a convoluted way of saying, we don't have things like grab a basketball and do like a spin, like skater, and making it like combinations of these movements, because bottom line at the end of the day is you're going to go back to the court and you're going to practice your game with the gains you've made in the gym. And that's how you build those motor pathways. I currently have a 30-inch standing vert and a 40 to 41-inch max vert. Will any further increase in my standing vert will shorten that difference. Will any further increase in my standing vert will shorten that difference? I see what you're saying. You're saying if you might want to ask that again, Naveen. So you're saying I have a 30-inch standing vert and a 40-inch max vert. Will any further increase in my standing vert shorten that difference? Well, if you increase your standing vert and don't increase your running vert, then the difference between the two will be shorter. But if you increase your standing vert, which is relative power output, the likelihood is that will correlate over into a slightly higher running vert to a degree, right, as you progress your technique as well. Best lifts for 1 foot jumping. I know everyone is different, but regularly. We use a lot of single limb training regardless of 1 or 2 foot jumping. One of my personal favorite movements is a rear foot elevated or Bulgarian split squat. It is an exceptionally powerful movement in that it accounts for a lot of factors of general strength gain, but it also accounts for a lot of factors of stability and core strength. So I like a Bulgarian or a rear foot elevated split squat. Yeah. I'm glad that makes sense, James. Sorry. Sometimes I have to watch myself from not overcomplicating things, because at the end of the day, right, like the mass majority of us are not sports scientists, and it's not super important that you know the dedicated science behind everything. You're like, just tell me what I should be doing or show me what I should be doing to help me get better, right? An athlete needs to be an athlete. Being an informed athlete is great, but you don't need to know the same things as the coach, because that's what makes the coach. That's where I was kind of at that point as well. Are you taking off?
We already came back.
Oh.
Gonna have him say goodnight to you, but
he's going for bring him in. Bring him in. We're gonna say goodnight to Jordan. I'm on YouTube Live, so that's okay. Come say goodnight to me, or good nap to me. Hi. Come say good nap to me. Look at you. Say hi to everybody. Look at what's that? Who's that boy? Who's that boy? Who's that guy? This is my son Jordan, and he's actually Batman. If you can't tell, don't grab Daddy's cord. And that's my San Pellegrino. Say hi. Who's that? Who's that boy? Nice hair, man. Nice hair. Whoa. Okay, you go have a nap, and we'll see you after your nap. Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you. All right. Okay, what do we have here? Squat versus plyometrics. That's not a matchup that you need to make, meaning that you wouldn't do one or the other, or one is better than the other. They're both, equally a part of overall training to some degree. Some athletes will benefit more from squatting and squatting heavy, and some athletes will benefit more from having a higher degree of plyometrics. It largely depends on kind of our neurological makeup, meaning are you neurologically sensitive to something that's more reactive and plyometric heavy, or something that is a little bit more strength based, right? And that's why our PPA streams of training that we have for our new onboarding app, we have PPA Power, and then we have PPA Elastic, and then we have PPA Knee Foundation. So we make sure that you fit criteria, and then you join the team that corresponds to the training that will best suit you. How can one-arm push-ups correlate to vert? Just general strength. A one-arm push-up largely is like a parlor trick. There's not really a need for a one-arm push-up. Not many people do one-arm push-ups properly anyway, so I personally wouldn't waste my time with them. Jordan has 40-inch vert. Baby Jordan he's got some powerful little chubby legs on him. So we'll see what his vert is. But yeah, I love my little man. Yeah, people find a way to make anything work. And I think at the end of the day, we understand jumping very, very well. Okay. I live in this space every day, and I have for multiple years. I'm in my 16th going on 17th year as a coach. Okay. I know I look super young and fresh. That's what old people say. I look young, but I've been doing this for a long time, and I competed at a very high level in multiple sports that were largely focused around jumping. Coach Chase, the other half of PPA, competed in multiple sports. Phenomenally intelligent individual, really good. He's one of our main programmers, and jumped very high as well. Still jumps very high as well. Have I ever seen a 300-pound person with a 40-inch vert? No. You ask funny questions, like some good questions for sure, but like very random, and I like that. I think that's I think that's fun. No, I have not. 32 years old. I'm now doing a plyometrics program for 3 months. One leg hops during rest days. If you're doing a plyometrics program, personally, like I don't like the sound of a plyometrics program, meaning that if the program is built entirely around plyos, to me, that's too many plyos. That's just my personal opinion. Now, I don't know what the plyometrics program contains, like if there's built-in strength work, stability work, if there's stuff to support the amount of contacts you're doing. But if you're doing 3 days a week of plyos, your rest days should not be more plyos. That's just my personal opinion. And it's something to consider. Like there's a school of thought that, just jumping all the time will help your jumping go up. It will, until you hurt yourself, which is 100% an inevitability. Like you will get hurt at some point being an athlete that jumps entirely and doesn't do maintenance work or strength training or prioritize other elements of their body. I've seen it with hundreds of athletes. I've done it personally. I've seen other people do it in person. So just be cautious. For us, it's about what we call our 360 approach to training. So we really tackle training from multiple angles, right? Training, mindset, recovery, nutrition. And then each one of those has a cyclical component to it as well. Your training is like strength, stability, and then like power. You have elements of mobility and flexibility, and then you have other elements of technique and things that really pull it all together. So I always caution people against like these programs that tend to go, we'll help you jump higher, and here's a whole bunch of things that look like jumping, so you'll jump higher, right? You do need supportive protocol to be able to make sure that you can progress through something like that. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying be cautious, pay attention to your body, and we'll always be here if you need additional help. What, or are there any, some of the main baseline characteristics, movements, or positions that you like your athletes to have or maintain? Whew. What some of the main baseline characteristics, movements, or positions that your athletes? You mean from like a lifting standpoint, like we're looking to have athletes, for instance, have a 2 times body weight squat or a 2.5 times body weight deadlift, things like that? Just specify the question so I don't like to guess. I like to make sure I give you some sort of specificity in the answer. How much jump rope is good for jump higher? Varies. I use a jump rope sometimes in a warm up, just to get my heart rate up and get a little bit of blood flow in my lower limb and the tissues in my lower legs. But unless you join like a competitive jump roping team, like I don't really know what you would do. I typically do them for like bursts of 45 seconds to a minute. And I use that in rotation with something else. A little bit of Tangerine San Pellegrino. Something refreshing. It's beautiful out today. I'm stuck inside working, and I figured, hey, at least I can share it with some other people. Which one are better at dunking, 1 or 2 foot jumpers? Both are equally talented at dunking. Both. There's no one is not better than the other. That's not how jumping works. All right, we'll take some more questions. Another reminder, Team PPA remote training is now open for registration until the 30th of June. That is all of your training needs on one platform. Whether you're looking to jump higher, run faster, be stronger, be a better athlete, it's all taken care of for you. It's $39.97 per month, no contracts. So you can cancel it anytime you want. We're going to show you why you don't need to cancel, that you're going to want to keep us in your pocket on that phone so that you have your workouts and you don't have any more guesswork. Then you're not having to go somewhere going, should I do this or this? Should I do this or this? And hope that you can create some sort of program, because at the end of the day, a list of exercises is not a program. Okay, we build out progressive programs that are structured to absolutely make a change. If you just put it down a list of exercises, you might get some change in a short period of time, and then you're going to find some adaptations, and your body will, it'll start taking shortcuts. Hope not too much to ask. Do you look the same at the jabs or technique work? Would love to work my technique. Yeah, so we're actually currently building out like a technique program that's going to be on there as well that everybody will have access to. But we absolutely, you can send your videos directly in the app and we take a look and we write back a little analysis for you right there. I had like 4 athletes on the first day. Excuse me, hiccup. Do that. They send me videos. They're like, this is what my jump looks like currently. And I'm like, all right, cool. Jump looks great. We need to work on this, and this. And they're like, awesome. And those are like a jump analysis is something that I charge for as a separate service, but is included within the application for the athletes, for our Team PPA athletes. Penultimate stride, chin need to be low to the ground. Your chin should definitely not be low to the ground. Or do you mean shin, like your lower leg? It's going to vary again. So there's a lot of information out there now on jump technique. Now that we got it out there 5-6 years ago in hordes, meaning like it was being very popularized through our channel, and then a lot of people grabbed it and then ran with it and started doing their own stuff with it. I only for years of my life, all I did was study jumping and technique and apply it to athletes all over the place. So what we know is there are different types of jumpers or archetypes of jumpers, meaning that if you are a more power-oriented jumper, the way that you transition through your penultimate will look and need to exist slightly differently than someone that is more elastic and springy, meaning the lower you get through your penultimate into your plant is more for a power jumper. If you're an elastic jumper, you're going to be a little bit taller, not fall quite as far because your time on the ground is going to be quicker. You're going to be off the ground much, much quicker. So the shin to the ground will vary depending on the type of jumper you are. Is jumping off different gathers like hop steps, drop steps helpful to increase vertical? I'm afraid it can mess with jump technique. No, like you still are going to be exposed to different stimulus of jumping, right? Like I think what's important to understand is that given the ideal scenario, your jump technique should be refined, right? You should have access to all of your strength through technique, but there are still ways to maximize jump height in a multitude of different setups, right? There's still a penultimate stride, but that penultimate might be shorter depending on a defender, depending on where you're at. It's going to be about the other positions and then the relative strength and power you possess to be able to jump from those. So you're not going to be losing gains by trying that. You're not going to be messing with things. You just need to make sure that you're working technique alongside your strength gains. Do you have a program where you judge jump technique? Because I believe it will at 6 inch. So all programs have access to send us in their jumps directly to the coaches in our direct messaging service on the app. Let me show you real quick. Let me show you really quick. Okay, let's open this app up here. I wish I could just share my screen, and I don't think I can do it on here, but okay. I don't know if you can see this. Let's see if we can we get this to be not as bright? How do we do this? Oh, it's like backwards too. So at the very bottom here, let's see if I can press it. It's backwards, but this is come on now. Let's see if we can't get it. Anyway, this is messages. You can see it at the top. You can like click directly on where there's Chase, and then you can click down in the corner and you can choose video from gallery, and you can choose your video and you can send it directly to Chase or myself, and we will look at it and we will write back to you and we'll say, here's what you need to work on. So yes, absolutely. You can send in your video through any program that you're at. What do you like to do in your off days or lighter days so that you're not doing nothing and losing gains? So just number one, James, if you have a day where you do nothing, you're not going to lose gains. Okay. Your body doesn't decondition that fast. That's just not how it works from a physiological state. That being said, on off days, I love to just move a little bit. And that could be like going for a walk. That could be going through a couple like yoga flows just to kind of keep the blood flowing, right? Just sitting on the couch all day, you're going to be sore as hell. So taking a couple, points in the day where you're going through some movement is ideal. If you have something that can imply compression, like if you have compression therapy, we have, rapid reboot system, which is like those puffy pants that you put on, they squeeze your legs. Those are great. Therapy guns. You can do contrast work with ice baths and heat. What else can you do? That's great. Some self-myofascial release. You can take lacrosse balls and foam rollers. Basically just do something. And don't think that you have to do it all day, every day. Also, don't panic if you have a day where you did nothing. Sometimes the negative mindset associated with missing a session is worse than actually missing a session. So just, be careful. Would you prefer to run at rim straight, circle, or zigzag? Definitely not a zigzag. A slight arc can definitely be beneficial to producing some rotational potential through your approach. How many different lifts should you keep on a routine during a strength phase? Again, this is a perfect example, Hugo, of why there's a need for coaches. And if you could give a few examples of which lifts should do in what in your routine. We use like hundreds of different lifts. What you need to know about lifting and strength work is that it's anything you do is to elicit what we call a stimulus. It's to get your body to work. And there are hundreds of movements that elicit the same stimulus. So what you select is largely going to be a result of what the ultimate goal is for you, right? And your unique physical makeup. So some people benefit more from doing something like a Bulgarian split squat than an actual back squat. For me, I have a back injury, my spine. So if I go into a two-legged back squat, it puts a lot of pressure into my herniated discs. But if I do a Bulgarian split squat, it's no pain at all. I can manage a lot of load on one limb. So to say what list of exercises should you do or how many should there be, it's speculation, and it's too much to say. Like, we typically program one strength, like main strength piece. If we're in a strength phase, then we're going to have some sort of, contrast pairing below it for like some explosive stimulus. And then we'll have a couple accessory complexes that help to work some of the smaller muscles that support the bigger lifts. Disciplined actions. Yes, it's definitely okay to do that. I wouldn't do it every day though. When Justin Darlington does his bunny hop jump technique, does it piss you off? No, it doesn't piss me off because Justin is he's an outlier. So best thing to do is to not watch like the top athletes and be like, I want to do what they're doing, because bottom line is 9 out of 10 of them are an outlier in some way, and just performing what they perform does not mean you'll do that. He found out what works best for him. So you just got to make sure that you are finding something that's a little bit more general in the sense, but streamlined approach toward you specifically. How many inches can a person gain just by losing 10 to 15 pounds? Again, that'll vary. So not, if you're overweight or if you're at a point where you do need to address your body composition, then losing some body fat can absolutely help you jump higher. But just trying to lose weight for the sake of losing weight to jump higher could also play around with your strength output. So, the term fat doesn't fly is true to a point, but there are also ranges of body fat that serve specific people better. So for me, I've jumped at a multiple body fat percentages. So I've done fitness modeling in the past, and I've went on stage at like 5% body fat. And I've also jumped right around 5% body fat. I had much more success and jumped my highest between 9 and 11% body fat, where Coach Chase is a leaner dude overall. His genetic or his composition makeup is different than mine. He jumps better, and he naturally floats around 6 to 8% body fat. So it depends on you as a person. During these times, I find it easy to train without breakfast at 7 a.m. Do you think I might limit progress because of it? Feels good. No, you know what? It's one of those things. If you've eaten sufficiently the day before, there are a lot of people that do things like intermittent fasting, which you can go for 16, 24 hours worth of not eating and still have energy to perform, right? Our body has a lot of on-hand energy. You don't want to get in the habit of like going long durations of time without eating or drinking water consistently, but that doesn't mean your body is not resourceful. I would just say if it feels good and it's not fatiguing you, you're not getting injuries from it, don't worry about it. Just make sure that you're hydrating a lot. Hugo, you're very welcome. Have you ever considered going to physical therapy school? No. I think I've learned a great deal about physical therapy through my time as a coach. I have a master's in human kinetics. I have an education degree. I have going on 17 years of experience as a coach that has progressed through the ranks over the years. I am interested in aspects of physical therapy, but at the same time, there are physical therapists that I'm more than happy to refer services to, which which is why a lot of, I have a lot of friends that are chiros, physios, therapists, doctors, and I talk to who I talk to. We're in the process right now of actually putting together some guests for the Penultimate Podcast, which is the Project Pure Athlete podcast. There are 7 episodes right now up on iTunes. So you can look at that through the Apple Podcast app. It's called the Penultimate Podcast. We do have a verified guest in Dr. Tom Walters, who runs the Instagram account at Rehab Science. He's a phenomenally talented, super smart physiotherapist who's going to come on and talk about common jump-related injuries and how to rehabilitate and prehab for a lot of those injuries. We've reached out to a lot of different people. I plan on having one of our athlete ambassadors, John Clark, on, Jay Clark the Jumper, to talk about the elite athlete mindset. Not a lot of people know that he's competed at very, very high levels in multiple sports. So super excited for that. What are your favorite jumping cues to give athletes to improve their technique? So there's a handful of cues that I brought to the industry that a lot of people use now. So, one of the big things is, push through your penultimate stride, right? Aggressive push to cover distance, punching the block foot, which is that last foot, accelerate through your jump, not to your jump. Those are 3 really good ones to start with. Accelerate through the jump, push through your penultimate stride, and punch your block foot. They create behaviors. Cues should be entirely about eliciting feedback from the athlete, right? Something that is usable. When you over cue, if you're a coach or if you have been coached, if a coach spits too much shit at you at once, you don't know where to focus. So I do the way I coach, and you can watch it on YouTube. I think I have a lot of coaching content up here, is I tend to talk, step back, let the athlete perform things. Cool. Let's address what went well. Let's try this on the next one. Go at it again. And it's just a little sprinkle, let them go to work, a little sprinkle, let them go to work. Because if you sit there and just overcoach, then you're not going to do any well either. So, okay. What are some exercises for preventing the knee from collapsing when jumping off of one foot? So slight internal rotation of the hip, right, which is where the knee collapses, is not a terrible thing. As long as you have protocol in place to create strong hips. So something like a banded lateral walk, put the band around your ankles or just above your knees, and you can walk sideways, keeping your legs apart, puts tension into the external rotators of your hips, right? Glute med, glute min, a lot of that, our TFL. There's a lot of synergy that happens between a lot of muscles to create torque in the hip. So, banded lateral walks are great for firing up the hips. Spend more time on one foot and pay attention to position. So make sure your knee is tracking over your toe, balance, move your body around, and you can do a lot with just making sure that your intent is very focused on what you're trying to accomplish. I have a popping on the outside of my knee that makes it difficult to squat any real weight. Doc believes it to be a quad tendon. We dealt with many, many, many different varieties of knee injuries. That being said, popping on the outside of the knee, to me, could very well be a quad tendon. It could be an IT band issue. It could be there. Again, I'd have to assess it personally to be able to see. What I'd recommend is spending some time up in your hip, loosening up some of those, loosening up some of the external rotators. So getting on a lacrosse ball or getting on a foam roller, moving the leg through extension and flexion, and seeing if loosening some of that up alleviates some of the tension of the knee. Because if there's clicking or popping at the knee where something inserts, you have to kind of run it back to where it originates from, right? You have to understand that where it originates from is likely where the mechanism there's some sort of fault. Doctors traditionally are not great at sport injuries. Doctors should refer you to somebody who specializes in movement-based injuries, something like a chiropractor, physio, or a really, really good strength coach. So if a doc believes it to be a quad tendon, it's likely because you said, hey, it's popping here, and they're like, well, there's a quad tendon there. Maybe it's a quad tendon. If it's the popping that causes you from not squatting weight or a sharp pain, that'll also dictate a lot of the answers as well. So I'd recommend getting it looked at by a professional other than a doctor. Go in and talk to like a good performance chiro. Jeffrey, hey coach, hope you're doing well. What do you do when you have an athlete with shoulder mobility issues? When I enter my penultimate stride, I feel my torso dip forward as compensation. So when you're addressing shoulder mobility, okay, what we need to address before mobility is stability. So a joint will largely protect itself from exposing additional range of motion if there's no stability in that range of motion. So making sure that you have a stable shoulder joint will allow you to open up that joint and support those new ranges. So things like, supporting like an overhead carry. I do a lot of bottoms up kettlebell work where you hold the actual horn of the kettlebell and the bell is up and you grip and create a nice straight line. You can do some nice slow pressing, but a lighter kettlebell. And it challenges when you bottoms up kettlebell and grip, even if you just take your hand and put it out in front of you right now and squeeze your fist as hard as you can, feel the upstream effect of that squeeze, right? You can see it. I squeeze and you can see all of the musculature up my arm into my shoulder starts to create a contraction and tension. So we build tension in the joint. We screw that shoulder into the socket. And that's going to be what you want to practice going through things, even like push-ups or pull-ups. Create stability. And then in order to expose new range of motion, probably the most slept on area of restriction for shoulder mobility are the lats. The back, right? If the lats are really tight, they pull down and they restrict the shoulder blade from upwardly rotating properly through a lot of our ranges of motion that we need. You could also get into some of the anterior structures of your chest, pec minor, some of the anterior delt and scalenes of the neck, and that can allow that shoulder to open up further. Bicep is another one that if your bicep tendons are really tight into that insertion point, then you're going to be restricted through that. Understand too that a powerful strike of the arms down is more important than a super big, long arm swing. Daniel says, it's not about jumping. I have exams tomorrow. I'm nervous. Any advice? Daniel, something to understand about nerves is they are something to, I think, validate in the sense that they will come. Okay. So it's good and okay to be nervous. Number two is I always looked at nerves and that anxiety like weather. Okay. Go out on a really beautiful day like this and the sky is bright blue, right? And when things are bright blue, we're happy. We tend to be in a better mood. But sometimes clouds come in, right? Clouds come over top of that blue sky and they tend to make us feel a little bit more like, meh. But the entire time those clouds are there, that blue sky is still there, right? That you that is not nervous is still there. We panic when we start to feel nervous and it takes us down that rabbit hole. Take a handful of deep breaths every 30, 40 minutes. Just find yourself, take 10 slow deep breaths, big pull in the nose, feel your belly fill full of air, and then long exhale. We need to take ourselves out of this element of our nervous system that causes us to panic, right? We call this our sympathetic nervous system. It's like our flight or fight nervous system into what we call our parasympathetic nervous system, which is for rest, digesting, sleep. And not that it's going to put you to sleep, but what it should do is calm the nerves down a bit. So do that before you go into your test, handful of deep breaths. When you find yourself getting worked up, identify the fact that you're being worked up, accept the fact that you're worked up, let yourself off the hook for being worked up. It's okay. Deep breaths and pull yourself back down. You're going to do just fine. I think we work things up to be worse than they are in our heads. And when we're in the situation, we start to focus and we'll get what we need to get. Breath is big, and I wish you all the best. I think you're going to do just fine. If you have an athlete who might have tight hip flexors and might not have full range of motion in the hips, how do you approach this before a session? Static stretching, active mobility, distractions with bands? James, it's a great question. It's going to depend largely on what aspect of hip flexor is tight, right? Because we understand that there are multiple muscle groups that provide flexion to the hip, and some that also primary responsibility is actually pulling the torso forward, which is still an aspect of hip flexion. So if you can identify the structure that's causing the impingement, that's going to be number one. So that's going to be taking a look at the range of motion of a hip first and foremost. So if they're lacking internal or external rotation at the hip joint, you can determine whether or not, like, what mechanism of movement is the problem. If it happens to be like an impingement within the capsule itself, then providing some gapping or some distraction work and then taking the joint through a range of motion is a good idea. But you also want to make sure that you prime and activate the actual complex of muscles around the joint to be able to create some kind of neurological memory there so that it doesn't just collapse back into in the impinged state. So it really depends on what aspect of the hip flexor is impinged. Likely TFL is a prime candidate for like low squat impingement. I usually like to do a distraction variation where thicker band anchored to something strong so you don't pull it over. Step into the band and pull that band as high up into your groin as possible. You'll want to make sure the band is anchored away from that hip. You're going to get into a strider position, which is going to be that kind of extended lunge so that the band is pulling away. Foot flat on the floor, hand on the knee, and then you're going to move that knee in and out while keeping the foot flat on the floor. And that should unlock or at least desensitize some aspect of that hip to get you into a better squat position. But again, our body speaks to us. If we're impinged in a certain area, opening it up and then squatting into that area isn't always the best case scenario either. So I think we make sure we go through that progressive warm-up protocol. We, blood, move, activate, right? General blood flow, movement, mobility, and then activation. And where you find that pain, that's where you're going to call it. You're not going to rifle that athlete through extra range of motion just because you want to look at something that looks nicer. Should I add agility with legs on a separate day or the same day? You can do either. You're welcome, Daniel. Good luck. And last question here, then I got to take off. I've been on here for 46 minutes. Wow, that goes fast. What workout split would you say is better when trying to build fundamental strength in the upper body and lower body, push-pull legs, or upper body, lower body? Both can work and both will work. I think it's finding out which one you respond best to. I do both for a period of a few weeks and see which one you feel like you respond better to. Okay. After I post this video, I'm going to put the link in the description over to Team PPA remote training. I hope some of you see the value in having a really good coach or a couple of really good coaches and a training team in your corner. We'd love to help you out. We'd love to make sure that you can not only reach your goals, but you surpass them. I love nothing more than to coach. I'm obsessed with it. I'm in love with it. And I want you on board as one of our new athletes. $39.97 per month, no contracts. You can cancel at any time. But come over and join Team PPA and you'll see what it's all about. Who's the best athlete that you encountered already had great mechanics? There's a ton of them. I've seen not a million. That's way too much exaggeration. I've seen a lot of athletes that are phenomenal. But, just overall or like kind of freaky athletes. One of our Team PPA ambassadors, Chi, 43 inch standing vertical, 48 inch full approach vertical. He squats 400 plus pounds, deadlifts 500 plus pounds, and he's like 5'9", 165 pounds. He's a freak. Okay. It was my pleasure to be here with everybody. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. I think that goes without saying. It's Coach Ty. Much love. See you soon.